Hello. You are listening to the Carroll Connection with your host, Jared Carroll.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Carroll Connection. I'm your host, Jared Carroll, here to bring you guys another great episode. I want to take a chance to shout out last week's episode 117 with Sierra Conway. She is an occupational therapy assistant. We talked about how she got into soccer early on, switching over from East Providence to Seekonk in her high school career. We talked about her going to community college, going that route, getting into occupational therapy, working with children with disabilities. Fantastic episode. And I want to say for the people who listen to that episode, that is my most viewed YouTube video to date. So shout out to Sierra's family, her friends, anyone that tuned into that episode, anyone that's a fan of the Carroll Connection that listened to that episode. I've never seen that in like a week, that amount of support for an episode. That went crazy. That's fantastic. We'd love to see that. So shout out to her and her supporters. But check it out, thecarrollconnection.simplecast.com. Also available Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the major listening platforms. And if you like to watch your podcast, you can check me out on YouTube. Just search The Carroll Connection or Jared Carroll. Should pop up right away. Want to give a preface. This is my last episode before I go to Ireland, so I'll have probably like a 2-week gap of no episodes. I'll come back for my birthday, do a little birthday episode, and then try to get back a few more episodes before the holidays, and then I'll probably take another break as well. Just a caveat of what I'm about to do these next several months. But for today, episode 118, bringing back a guest from episode 54, Zane Propatier.
Hello.
Welcome back, brother. How you been?
It's great. I'm doing good. I'm doing great, actually. A lot of good things.
Yeah, we have a lot of great topics to dive into. Talk a little bit about an album coming up. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about, but
very exciting.
I'll kind of let you lead the conversation, kind of catch people up on what's been happening since that last podcast.
Sure. Since the last podcast, I kind of said, it was like, from what I remember, it was like hopeful but sad. I was like, I'm just going to do it. I don't know what it is. I remember saying like, I'm not sure what it is, but I'm going to do it. And I think like I finally figured out like what doing it is. And that's been the album. Like that's been my focus. And I have like a big thing. And I've always wanted to like do like incorporate charity to some extent. I think charity is great. I think that I have a really good life and I want to give a good life to other people. So if I can provide that, that's huge. I also think like this is the best way. So it's kind of like selfish because it's my album. I always feel selfish about like my own stuff. I don't know if you feel that with your podcast, but at the same time, my way of staying out of the selfish realm is by giving back to someone. So it's like I put in the work, I put in the time, the money, release a product, and hopefully someone else can benefit, whether if it's a listener getting something from my music or whether if it's, you know, a child that has cancer that gets chemotherapy, toys, food. It's like my goal is just to put out. It's like I don't want fame, I don't want publicity. I mean, to some extent it'd be nice, but just enough to be able to get someone help, whether if they just need a sad song to listen to or a pop song or if they actually need physical help. That's my goal.
Yeah, and I definitely could relate to that with the podcast and just giving back in that aspect. And we talked a little bit about that and kind of like having some sort of meaning and purpose. And I think that was really crucial to hit on because for me, when it comes to the podcast, we were talking about where I could take this, how I should take this, and like you're giving some advice and where I could take this and what to look forward to. And I've always kind of, when we talked about like the popularity and viral moments versus a podcast versus something that like what I'm doing, which is a little bit more related to mental health, and I'm not going to be such grabbing at attention and shit like that. So it is an interesting like dynamic and I don't know what the right word is, but the way to go viral these days. So it's weird how we have to like kind of figure out, do you really want fame and fortune or do you really want the connection and meaningfulness in life? And I think that's super important. And I could probably picture you kind of figuring that out as you're kind of going through this process.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a big thing for all artists is they have to question their humanity. Now, I know many artists, and I'll kind of keep this very like broad so it applies to a lot of people, but like their art, they sacrifice everything for. And like I admire it so much as an artist. But they sacrifice everything. They sacrifice the family that loves them. They sacrifice the friends they know. They sacrifice the job that they can get. They sacrifice like so much that you question, like, is it worth it? Now, every artist that's made it will tell you, like, yeah, it's worth it. But then they might be upset with the fame or the fortune and the problems that come with, walking the Target and having cameras in your face. But the big thing is, like, the humanity aspect is so huge for me. Like, I do not want to sacrifice that. I feel like it's one of the things on this earth that's so great is, like, we're all placed on this floating rock in the middle of nothing. It makes no sense. But what I make sense of my life is that, like, I have good friends, I have good family, I have a good, like, job, I have, like, a good mentality, I feel great. Like, you have to, like, kind of take all the good in your life and look at that. Of course there's bad, right? Of course there's negative. It's like, listen, I'm not an optimist. Like, I'm not telling everyone to, like, go out there and, like, every day is going to be great. But, like, I'm very realistic in the sense of, like, just be appreciative. Like, tell people all the time, like, you don't know what you have till you lose it. Everyone knows that, right? It's like, I've lost it. Like, I try not to swear. I'm like, oh, but I lost it. It's like, when you lose it, you start to realize, like, okay, now what? Like, you get to a sense, like, I'll give you kind of a quick scenario. So say there's a boy or girl or anyone that is causing trouble. The first instinct an adult has is, let's take away their toys, right? That'll make them stop. The problem is, once you take away the toys too much, eventually the kid's going to be like, okay, like, you've done this before. Now what? I'm going to cause even more havoc. And now you have nothing to take away from the kid. They're going to go crazy. And that's why I look at life is like, I look at it so simple in the aspect of, like, I have no toys to be taken away at this point, and I'm going to live it to the fullest and most positive I can. I know that was kind of like a big spin around, but that's, like, the point is, like, be positive.
I think it's a huge point because, like, in a certain sense, like, you have, like you said, you have nothing to lose, where it's like, you're more willing probably to take a risk than a lot of people too. And, like, it goes back to that gratitude aspect that you hit on. Like, I don't think enough people really appreciate what they do have. And, like, I agree with the whole humanity aspect of, like, picking and choosing your battles to a certain extent. And, like, I've had to do that with this podcast is, like, I'm finishing up. Technically, I think I released in, like, mid-November. So, like, it'd be 3 years, but I was recording prior to that. So I've been doing this for basically 3 years now,
Wild.
which is
Time
a crazy.
flies.
I started in 2019 of, I think, that October. So, like, I was in Georgia for a little bit and I moved back and started doing it. So I've been doing this for about 3 years, and I've had to come to grips with my own, like, battle with this podcast weekly, monthly, yearly, trying to figure out what to do with this. And having some success on TikTok definitely inflated my ego at times where I was like, I'm going to be this celebrity. I'm going to be famous. And, like,
Right.
that part, when I had a little bit of taste of it, it's like you hit on the head, like, off podcast. It's like a slot machine, and it's like, it's temporary. Like, you're kind of chasing nothing. Obviously, when you're talking about fame levels of such people, like, for musicians aspect, like Drake or like Eminem or like those guys, like,
untouchable.
Yeah. There's a certain point where it's like, yeah, the fame is probably worth it.
Right.
But, like, at a certain point, you got to realize what's important to you. And, like, for me, it's always been family. It's always been family, friends, the connections. And, like, that's part of the reason my podcast is called The Carroll Connection, because it's based off my last name and the connections that I make.
Right.
So I think if more people could come to grips with that aspect, obviously pursue your dreams. And if your passion is to be super famous and wealthy, have at it. I wish you the best in that.
I don't. I'm going to interject.
Go ahead.
I don't. I think that I said this to someone recently. I was in an Instagram DM and they were like, I don't know, like, we were just talking back and forth as artist to artist. And I think I posted a video of, I went to Logic and Wiz, and we have a really cool story, and I can kind of get into it. But let me just skip that for now. I'll get back. So he posted, like, I posted the video of Wiz Khalifa, like, really up close because we were in the pit. And the guy, like, commented, and he's like, yo, like, Wiz is an asshole. And I was like, okay, like, kind of weird. Like, sure. I don't disagree with you. Like, I don't really know Wiz Khalifa if you're watching. But no, it's like I don't know him. It's like I don't know. But I said, I believe every artist is. And he was like, what do you mean? I was like, sacrifice. Like, all these artists have sacrificed back to the humanity, like a part of themselves that's so huge to be able to be on that stage. Like, someone had to be kicked down for them to get that center stage to some extent. And that's why, like, when I do my music, I am so aware of that. Like, I recognize that and I feel bad. Like, a lot of people are like, don't feel bad. Like, so I have an album coming up, releasing an album. 1030 is the name of it, and I'm doing an album release party that's occurring on October 23rd at the Fet, if you want to show up. But no, so the thing is like, my thing is like, you're coming to pay money to watch me? Like, why? Like, that is so selfish. Like, I am asking people who know me or don't know me to pay money to sit and watch me sing. Like, that's ridiculous. If you really conceptualize that, you're like, man, that's like weird. Like, why are you going to pay money to watch me sing? Sure, you might like it, but whether if you like it or not, it's like so selfish. It's like, they could take that money, that hard-earned money in today's day and world, and do anything with it. Gas is like, what, $3.50 now? 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, it's like $4 or $5. Like, I am asking someone to take money out of their gas tank to go see me. Like, that's selfish. So when he asked me, like, oh, so you think artists are selfish? I'm like, yeah, like, absolutely. Like, someone had to get kicked down during the way. Whether if it's production artists, whether if it's beats, like, no one ever knows the beat makers. Like, you might know DJ Khaled, but other than that, like, don't tell me, like, the people making the instrumental. Don't tell me the person doing the mixing, the mastering, or anything like that. And during this podcast, I want to shout all these people out. I want to give them the platform that hopefully, that I never really had as an artist, because I just pushed through. A lot of people said a lot of things about my music, my style, my videos. It's like, I just pushed through. I'm sure you pushed through with your podcast.
Yeah, it's a similar aspect. And even to like hit on that point, like, think of like people like Joe Rogan. Like, he's the star, but like without a guy like Jamie to help run the producing, his podcast wouldn't be where it is. Like,
Absolutely.
So a lot of these great podcasters have a great team behind them to do a lot of the technical stuff that they don't know how to do. Like, they are good hosts and they're good on camera, but they might not be the best off camera with all this equipment and stuff like that. So it goes into that aspect too, where I think any content creator to a certain extent is selfish.
Right.
Like, I mean, I have my name on my podcast. Like, that's inherently selfish. Like, it's like labeled with mine, but like people's stories fall under it. So it's like, I think my way to counteract that, and I think the way you're doing it too, is like help donate to charity as a way to try to balance that. And like, when I come on, I always tell people, like, this is your episode. I want to give a platform to people where they can come on, feel comfortable, talk about themselves, their life story, what they got going on, talk about mental health.
So important.
And like,
what you're doing,
creating a space where it feels like therapy, but I also want people to be able to promote what they do. And it is also like creating awareness in the community that we have. It's like, we have some really dope people that do dope things.
Right. Yeah.
And if I could spotlight that to the best of my ability, I'm going to do that. And it creates some purpose. And I think when people have purpose, it helps drive good in humanity. And I think that's a good thing. And like, a huge shout out to what you're doing, and like being able to turn a lot of, instead of, you could be getting profits, you're turning that and say, I want to donate this. And like, I want to hear kind of some of the reasons that you're deciding to do that. Cause it's like, as an artist or a creator in general, people would be like, what are you doing? So like, I want to like hear like kind of your perspective on that.
Absolutely. And I'm going to get into this, but one thing, anybody that knows me knows I ramble and I go off topic. So
it's good for a podcast. I'm just saying.
It's great. It's maybe in this scenario, but people are going to be pissed if they watch this and they're like, you didn't tell the Wiz Khalifa story. All right, so let me just tell that, and then I'll get right back to the
important stuff. That's fine.
So me and a couple friends, I decided to buy a couple tickets to Logic and Wiz Khalifa and surprise one friend, and we all show up at the concert. So it happens to be one of those days where it's like raining miserably, and we're at the Xfinity Center, which, if people don't know, half of it's inside and like half of it's outside. It's kind of like a 50-50 event. So it's soaked, and of course our tickets are on the outside, and the security sucks. It's on a Monday, so like no one's there. And like, the tickets were like $12. Like they were ridiculously cheap. Like Logic, Wiz Khalifa, like I don't even know why they even performed for like $12. But hey, whatever. Good on them. So it was like so miserable. It's soaked. And when I say like soaked, I mean I felt like I was in the monsoon. Like it was so I was so drenched, like we were all ready to go home. Like, and that sucks when it's like you have like something to do, but there's like you're ready to go home. So I was like, man, it's not like you can just go take a picture of a pit ticket and then, go in the pit. And the girl we were with was like, why not? And I was like, oh no, we're not doing this. We're not doing it. I was messing around. So one of our friends buys one pit ticket, screenshots it, sends it to all of us. I'm like really nervous, Nelly, anxious. We get through 4 levels of security. No wristband. You need a wristband to get in. 4 levels. First level, where's your wristband? Oh, well, we just bought it in the concert. All right, we'll take you to the next guy. Next guy, where's your wristband? I'm like, oh my God, my heart. Like I couldn't, like, I was so nervous. I was like, I can't do this. I can't do this. Like I was freaking out for real. I was having like anxiety, panic attack. Like I was like, I gotta go back to my seat. Like we're gonna get caught. We're gonna get kicked out. And they're like, dude, like whatever. It's Logic and Wiz Khalifa. Like it's not a big deal. We got through all levels of security and get to the pit and had one of the best concert nights of my life. Like we were right there, super close, and that's how I took the video in order to get an Instagram like message that he's an asshole. So that's how that's full circle.
Ties that perfect.
Kind of gives a story, but yeah, fun night. Don't sneak into concerts. It's very stressful. You'll get a lot of anxiety if you're like me. I won't ever do it again. I won't. It was not worth it.
I'm a very anxious person. That would have drove me crazy, to be honest.
Like they were like, come on. I'm like, what do you mean? Come on. Like,
surprised you got through, but maybe it helped too that it was rainy and like shitty
they
out.
Felt bad. They had to know. They had to know. They were like, all right, we got.
Was it sold out too? Was like everything filled up? Like
this is like empty. That's why I was like, dude, just let the people go under the damn tarp. Like, please, like these people are like drenched. Like, it sucks for the 12-year-old fan of Logic. Because Logic's like, peace, love, positivity. Like, it's like the kid that feels bad for him, so drenched, it wants to go home. It's like, that sucks. But we had a good night. Transition to the important stuff, the album. So let me kind of explain everything behind this. Not quickly, but we'll go through it.
Yeah, take as much time as you want to explain it. It's an important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. 10:30. People always ask me, oh, what is the title? So I keep telling people, I'm like, you want to know the title? Then you got to go to the album release party. But for the podcast, like, obviously, I'm going to get into the title. So it has a deep connection to my grandfather. Like, the album was inspired by, him. I don't want to say his death, because it's not like, I thought, like, oh, I got to capitalize off of this. It's not that. But like he was such a vital role in my life. Like I think I said last podcast the word uniparent. Like that doesn't like that is so like that is him. Like he was the man. Like a lot of people in Seekonk know him. A lot of people like still talk to him about him this day. And it's like, wow, like the impact this guy had is just unreal. Like positive, friendly, loving, like everything a grandfather should be and more. So he unfortunately passed away really like unexpectedly, like the quickest day ever. I always say like he had the luckiest death, which it sounds really morbid and awful, but like he loves the casino. Went to the casino on the day he died. Loves Chinese food. Ate Chinese food on the day he died. I joke. I say that's probably what killed him, but it's awful. But I think that in general, like this man got to have like a last hurrah that a lot of people don't have on their last day. So he died around anytime around 10:30 to 11:30. So the number comes up, right? A couple weeks pass, mourning, sad, very sad, depressed even, and I'm trying to find pictures of him, videos. I think a lot of people do that naturally. Like when someone passes, they're like, where's the soonest photo I have or video? And we didn't take a lot of photos because he's from like 2 whole generations before me. Like they don't do that. They don't take photos, videos, Instagrams, like Snapchats. Like it's just not there. So I had a voicemail because this man, and I am not ashamed to say it, woke me up every day for school. And he would call me at 7 a.m. and say, Zane, wake up. Like Zane. And every day he would call me. Now, it's funny because one day he called. I didn't answer. I was actually already at work or school, and I know it for a fact. I was doing whatever I had to do. And he left me a voicemail. And he said, Zane, it's 10:30. And like he's implying like you should be up. Like wake up. And I took that voicemail and I saved it. I was like, that's the intro to my album. Like, he's telling me to wake up. Like, I got to do this. Like, he from the grave, like, is telling me, wake up. Like, Zane, it's 10:30. Like, get your ass out of bed. Record this album. Get up. Pull your pants up. Record it and do something with your life. And I literally just, like, went on with that. And that has been the inspiration for this whole album.
Bro, that gave me goosebumps. I ain't even gonna lie.
It's like wake up. It's like, what are you doing with your life? It's like you're gonna sit here and complain about me being dead. It's like I say this all the time. So his name is Louis Propatier. A lot of people call him Buddy. A lot of people call him Lou. I obviously called him Grandpa, but for me, my goal in my life, a lot of people have different goals. They want to be, once we goes back to the rich or famous or have a house or have a family, but my goal is to be the Lou Propatier in someone else's life. If I can do for another child or person what that man did for me, then I have succeeded. And that I view success very different than a lot of people. I think people view success as money, monetary value, and they view like, oh, I don't got money, I don't have a house, and I'm not successful. I don't view it that way at all. I view success by different goals, personal goals. Like, yeah, I want a house. If I have a house, that would make me more successful, but that doesn't make me successful. Like, the more is a key word there. So it's like if I have like more money, that doesn't really make me more successful unless I'm doing something with it that is catering my personal views of success. Is kind of confusing, a little philosophical.
No, I agree with that, and it relates to like a lot of stuff we've hit on too in this podcast, even podcasts before, in finding this purpose that a lot of people are kind of walking through life too, just kind of lackluster. They don't have any ambition. There's no appreciation for life, and I can understand with the way things are in society. Like, things are pretty dark and gloomy right now, and especially the way, like, since we had COVID, and then obviously the things that are happening between like Russia and Ukraine, and like you can talk about China. There's a lot of stuff that's happening. And then we have our own countries at each other's necks a lot of the times. So people are like overstimulated with a lot of things, and I think if you don't have that one thing that can like take you away from stuff. Sometimes it's work for people, but some people, I'd say most people, aren't lucky enough to have a job that can do that for them.
Right.
So if you aren't able to find some sort of like outlet or hobby or activity that can take you into a place of kind of like joy and fulfillment, you're going to struggle in life. And I think we see that too with like the mental health, like increasing rates, especially in the youth with people. Is like people are depressed and anxious, and then the medication with that is causing a lot of issues too with a lot of people. People are being overprescribed with things, and it's a whole different conversation, but it's like it goes back to that point where people don't have purpose.
Yeah. I'll give you some stats actually. So this is actually very important. So currently I'm a graduate student. I go to Roger Williams. I've been going there 4 years, decided to get my master's in forensic mental health counseling. Trust me, sounds a lot more important than it actually is. It's just mental health counseling. But here's some important stats for you. So in the US, approximate types of, this is all different types of clinicians, from family psychologists to, like just social workers or anything regarding that. There's only about 500,000 in the US. Okay. So that's all mental health care workers, mental health care workers, not healthcare workers, obviously. There's about 500,000. I'm going to up it. Let's just say there's 1 million within the next 5 years. Say we get 1 million. There's over 300 million people in the US. How the hell is 1 million people, or are 1 million people, going to help 300 plus million people? How? Like, you wonder why mental health is so big? It's because 1 in 5 people have mental health issues. 1 in 5, 20%. So if you take 20% of 300 million, I'm terrible at math,
That's
but
a
ready?
fucking
If you
lot.
take 300 million, think of that, 300 million people, that's the US. It's even more than that. It's like 350 mil, whatever. 20% of that. You think 1 million people can help 20% of 300 million? I'd love to take out a calculator right now, but think about that.
Yeah, no.
Go on your calculator, take 300 million, divide, like, do the math to get 20% of that, and 1 million people are estimated to help take care of that. And not all of them are psychologists, and not all of them are mental health care workers. Some of them are just social workers. 1 million for 300 million.
And
people.
that's definitely part of the problem.
Like,
is like we
think
don't
about
have
that.
enough people to help, and then obviously it goes back to people don't pursue help too. That's a part of it where people don't feel comfortable, especially a lot of men don't feel comfortable and confident to talk about it. And that's somewhere where I've kind of jumped into that space, and like I'm okay with talking about it.
And we appreciate you for that.
Thank you. And
We do.
it's a double-edged sword for sure, because like part of me I've had to learn over the course of even doing this podcast is like holding myself accountable for the things I say and how I act and my emotions. And for most of my life it was like the whole man up stuff I leaned into. I played sports, that's how I was raised. And for a few years during the podcast, or a couple of years at least, say at least half of the podcast we'll say, I was going through like situationship, up and down heartbreak, feeling a lot of reoccurring trauma that had never addressed. And like I leaned into like the feel your feelings aspect, which is like my mantra, where it became I felt my feelings and didn't give a fuck about anyone else.
Right.
Both sides of those are toxic. Just strictly avoiding your emotions is bad, and
yeah.
feeling them all and then just completely blasting out everybody else's feelings is also toxic. So there is a point where you have to find some balance between the two.
Middle ground stuff.
I think, especially as a man, there is a certain point where it is you have to just suck it up and do it. Like there is a point where you have to just do it. So like I don't disagree with that whole side, but I also don't disagree with like you have to be able to understand and process your emotions, because suppressing them never works.
Oh yeah, it's proven. Literally proven. I mean, just based on those stats I gave you, like if you really like, I really hope the people at home listening, like take the time, do the research, take you 10 minutes on Google, and you're like, wow, like this is ridiculous. Like you can't even like conceptualize it because it makes no sense. You're like, how does this even work? Like how are these like, and it just shows you how many people like don't get treated, right? Or like don't get the help they need, or don't seek it, or don't talk about it. And like honestly, funny we brought up Logic, because like he did a lot. Like he put out the 1-800 song, like it opened the floor a little bit. I'm not saying he's the cure of mental health, but like him putting that song out, making the National Suicide Hotline on the map, like that helped a lot, because now people are getting more like intrigued, and now they're learning more about it, and now they're speaking more about it. I hear people go up to me and they're like, yeah, I was at my therapist last night, and we don't even blink. Like they're talking to me. But before, like 10 years ago, and I was pretty young, I was like 13, 14, 15, like around there, like someone's like, oh, like, yeah, I had my therapist. I'd be like, you had your what? Like, what is wrong with you? But it's a totally different world. And once you actually learn and there's no stigma, it's a lot more better. It's better because you feel more connected. And this all leads to a word you said, and we're going to talk about this because it's like fulfillment.
No, 100%.
It goes into everything that we actually talked about this podcast, we talked about in this podcast so far. 1, like, don't sell your soul. You'll feel a lot more fulfilled. 2, like, take the time to do things you want to do, like make music, make a podcast, like do something meaningful. If you like making clothes, if you like making forks and knives, like it's silly, but do it. Like who cares? Like 2013 really stuck with me. YOLO, right? Like you only live once, like that we know of. Take the opportunity. I don't care what religious background, ethnicity, race, like sexuality, like where you come from doesn't matter. It's what you do. And that's the thing, is like take the time to do something meaningful, because why not? Like why not? I said at the beginning of this podcast, very simply, but if you really once again, I guess the word of the day is conceptualize, but think about it. We're people on a floating rock in the middle of nothing. And you're going to tell me that certain things are like mean anything? I'm not saying life is meaningless, but I'm saying like don't tell me that anything is not possible. If you told me that we'll be able to fly in 50 years, I'd be like, maybe not. Like maybe humans aren't going to grow wings, but we're in the middle of nothing on a floating rock in what we call space, and we walk around and we have jobs and we get this piece of paper that we give to people and we can live in places because of it, but also get food. Like, if you really think about it, it sounds batshit. Like, this sounds like the best story ever written. So it's like, I don't discredit anyone's views. When people say, like, oh, I'm a hard Christian, I'm like, awesome. Oh, I'm Jewish? Awesome. Oh, I believe in the devil? I personally don't say awesome to them because it kind of keeps me. but
Yeah, it's fine. I know.
I know. To be funny with it.
I know where you're going with that. Yeah.
The idea is like nothing is ridiculous when you really break it down. So like if you have a belief, like 13-year-old me that started writing music on a notebook never thought I'd be able to do it. 16-year-old me never thought I'd be recording. 18-year-old me never thought I'd be on Apple Music. And now here I am at 23 years old, and I never thought I'd have a music video. I never thought I would have an album release party, which I definitely want to get more into. But I never thought that it would be possible because I just didn't. It's just something you don't think of because you're like, oh, I see other people doing it and I just can't do that. But you got to do what works for you. You know, I'm not the most talented rapper or musician or lyricist or videographer or even like anything on that level. But what I am is I'm the best version of me always. And I'm a better version of me than I was 5 years ago. And that version is better than the one 5 years ago. And the goal is I want to be a better me in 5 years and so on. Even tomorrow, even today, even right now, I want to be a better me. And that's genuine. Like if you don't want to better yourself, why? Like it physically and physiologically and like every aspect of life does not make sense for you to not want to better yourself, whether if it's your health, mental, physical, like why?
It's 100%. I agree with that. And even just to spin off like the whole concept of just us being on a floating rock, to even like bring it even closer to Earth with the evolution aspect. Views. I say this all the time, is like, think about how much shit that your ancestors had to do just for you to be here.
Lucky.
Like, lucky as fuck.
Beyond.
So to sit here and then just mope and complain, that's selfish, man. Like all this stuff and struggle, because like we have it pretty damn good in 2022 in America, at least. I'm not going to speak about other countries and what they go through, but like for people especially born in at least like some even lower class in like America is still pretty damn good for a lot of places compared to like third world countries. So like speaking in like general terms, but like we are so lucky to be here and to just waste it away and just not try to make impact and not try to help people and not try to live the best possible life that you can live is quite frankly selfish and a waste, because we, like you said, like we're only granted one life that we know of, at least for here. And like for us to not make a difference for other people and not to help and not to educate and not to do things that we enjoy, it's just straight stupid. Like, like why would you not? And like, even to the point is like, how can you not get better each and every year? Like, how can you just be complacent and be accepting of complacency? Like the thought of like me doing this podcast with the same equipment and like the same style, it just like, it bugs me. Like even like I told you, like I try to like always try to improve something. And like, that's the goal, at least every year, is improve, whether it's the camera, whether it's the lights. I literally have new lights I already bought, whether it's adding new microphones, whether it's changing the logo, whatever it is, like you have to improve something. And like, because I love the quote where it's like, if you're not progressing, you're regressing by default.
Yeah.
So like that always motivates me. Is like, even like in the gym, if I'm not doing something, I'm like, by definition, I'm getting worse. Like even if I don't feel like I'm gaining weight or whatever, I'm not getting better. And that's an important part to hit on, because so many people get caught up in the rat race of life and just like
Oh yeah.
get stuck. And like I literally made an episode back in I think it was January of this year where I talked about my feelings about feeling stuck. I literally titled the episode that because like mentally I felt that way.
Mhm.
But then in hindsight, when I look at it that episode now, I'm like, I really wasn't stuck. Like it was just like a mental like fog
Yeah.
that I was feeling in it. Like to be able to record that was a motivating thing. Looking at it now is like,
Of course. See where you're
oh,
coming.
like I see that. Like I see why I was feeling that. Like I could see the vision, but like things were foggy at the moment. And I think that's an important aspect when people are in their career, whether they're pursuing, whether it's music, like you said, or a podcast, you're gonna say there's Twitch streaming or a clothing brand or whatever.
Doesn't
Is
matter.
if you paint this vision for yourself and you create this goal, along that journey towards that goal, there's going to be many roads. The weather is going to be shitty. It's going to be foggy. At some
Right.
places, it's going to be rainy and thundering. And some days it's going to be sunny and like rainbows everywhere. And you can get to your destination easily. But like along that journey, things are not going to be perfect. And you
Right.
have to be able to like remind yourself of that vision and where you're going. And I think that helps a lot of people. And like the vision that I have for this is creating the connections and reminding myself every single day, like if you keep doing this, I guarantee you're going to make an impact. And then I remind myself, you already have. So
Right.
it just
Yeah,
keeps
yeah.
going.
I will say, like, one thing to make clear about all of this is it starts here. Like, it's all up here. Like, having just a brain. You know, we talk about like, oh yeah, upgrading. And upgrading is great, materialistic items, like, but like the main upgrade you gotta do is your thoughts. Like, sure, get the new camera, get the new mic, get the new equipment, but upgrade your thoughts. And you can do that just by changing a view. So like okay, like I'm gonna kind of think of a crazy example off the top of my head. But let's say it's a rainy day, okay? And you're like, oh man, today sucks. It's raining. I hate the rain. I don't want to go outside. I'm going to get wet. I just got new shoes. They're going to get dirty. Like, you're setting yourself up to fail. Like, you have not opened any opportunity. Once again, not an optimist. Like, I don't care about people that want to be like, oh, it's a great day today, every single day. Very realistic. But you're gonna tell me by being a pessimist and being negative that you're gonna feel good? It's like, of course you're gonna feel like shit. Everything you look at is negative. The weather, your shoes getting wet, you're gonna be soaked. Like, okay, now let's just change that, right? Let's just flip it. Like, okay, I don't really like the rain, but you know, it's different. You know, I like the way it feels on my skin. When I'm inside, it's so nice. Turn off the lights, take the best naps, right? It's like take the positive from that experience because rain is both positive and negative, just like everything in life. Take the positive from it because you'll feel a lot better. You can be like, yeah, I don't like getting wet. That's the realistic side, right? I don't like getting wet. I really don't. But the good end of it is, yeah, I love being inside on a rainy day, popping Call of Duty. I'm chilling, playing some Post Malone, and I'm in my element. Rain heightens that because I'm just like, I can't go outside. Outside is so shitty, I don't want to go outside, so I'm meant to be here and playing this video game. Very silly example. But like, that's the way I kind of view everything in life. And I'm not telling people to go out there and stick a thumb up there, you know? It's just be like kind of both complacent but happy and try to look at things differently. Take your view, tilt it. Like, doesn't have to be everything. Some things are going to suck in life. You know, I'm not saying if you have a pet die, be like, well, you know, now I don't have to pay for pet food. Like, right? Like that's kind of dark. But be like, yo, that dog was so loyal to me. Like, we had great times. Like, that dog was perfect. Like, in my life at that point, that dog did everything with me. That's what I take out of it. But hey, there's gonna be the people that are like, well, I don't
There
have
were
to.
people that say that because like that hits home for me because like I mentioned like my dog passed in
Yeah.
July and like I literally didn't have it planned. I literally was going to take like a scheduled bye week for my podcast and it happened like we knew she was getting towards that point in life and I didn't know we were putting her down like the week before I had a bye week. So it was like almost meant to be where
Yeah.
like I was able to dedicate a whole episode talking about what my dog meant to me.
Right.
And like, for me, my therapy has always been like my therapy. Literally, I'm saying it without even like saying it, but like my podcast has always been my therapy.
Right.
And
It's your therapy. It is.
to be able to speak about that experience and like what it was like being in the room and like seeing her in her last moments was like healing for me. And
Yeah.
like it's immortalized forever. And I literally got her paw print even tatted on me because how much she meant to me. But like feeling those things and having that space for yourself is so important. And as you were talking, I literally thought of the name for this podcast. I'm gonna probably title it "Wake Up."
Yeah.
Because like part of with
man.
like part of with life is like waking up. Because
Oh,
like
yeah. Huge
we've
point.
become indoctrinated in like the way society goes, our thought process, through our education system, and like it sounds so like wokey dokey type shit, but like
It's a perfect title.
It's true because like, and I like literally when you were talking about the message and like the meaning behind it and then the time behind that, I'm literally thinking like I'm like that's so fucking real. Like,
Yeah.
because I had a similar experience with like my grandfather and like my quotes, "Take a chance,"
Right.
and like that rings bells. Like when he passed away, like to hear him echo like to take a chance, like it's immortalized in my podcast forever now. Is like you cannot take that
Yeah.
away from me, and
It's
it
there
like
forever.
it motivates me. So I really relate to you in that aspect of the creation of your album. Because like doing the podcast isn't because like I want to like capitalize off someone's death.
Of
It's
course.
because I want to like make sure they're remembered in a special way, and it's like a way to motivate me. And I can imagine that was like a similar process for you as you're creating
Oh, yeah.
1030.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't know this about me. But they know that my grandfather was very close to me. Like they absolutely, because I was there, he was there. We were like two peas in a pod. But one thing a lot of people don't know is I was there when he died, like during the flat line. I was there with him, with my Uncle Kyle, crazy uncle for the people that know him. And we sat there and I said we were the first people in the room. He was there and, you hear the beep, beep, beep. And I said, "Grandpa, I love you so much, but it's okay. You can go." Beep. Mind blown. It's like sometimes you just need to know when it's time to go. He had his chance and he knew. It's like he heard my voice. Like, I know that sounds a little crazy, but
No, it's true.
It's like you never know. And when that happened, that it really all comes together with like the album, why I do everything, which I'm gonna switch over to what I'm doing so people can get some glimpse. And but how much he means to me, because I think that's the point I really want to nail home is like what he means to me and why he's so important, not to me but to the world, his mentality, his view, because he wasn't an optimist and he wasn't a pessimist. He lived just to live. He didn't even look at things like that. He just wanted to create a better atmosphere for everyone around him, and everyone that knows him knew it. So if I can do the same, that's the goal. So, before I get into, I guess, the finale of telling about my release party and kind of what it's about, I believe in life. I'll tell you a story. I might have even said this during the first podcast, but it's the penny story. And the idea of the penny is that some people hold different beliefs and values than others. That is definite, right? The idea of the penny is that some kids on this earth might lose a parent and not care. They're like, "Oh, good riddance. My mom used to yell at me." Sounds awful, right? This is a very highly exaggerated scenario on both sides. And other people, there might be another kid that loses a penny, right? And that was everything to him. Everything to him. Cries every day, mourns. And people might say, "You're disgusting. Bob over here lost his mom. And you lost a penny, you're going to cry and act like you have a place?" Well, Bob doesn't care about his mom. She hit him every day. So Bob losing his mom was almost a good thing. I'm not saying it's good, but the whole purpose of using two giant extremes is that you can't equate pain. Pain is something that is immeasurable. My pain and your pain are different. The pain you may have from the loss of an animal might be the same pain as me losing a person. So I hate when people are like discrediting pain. They say, but how can you say that? The whole idea is, how can you speak and not realize that this person's going through pain? If I wake up tomorrow and I get hit by a car, we're knocking on wood here, and I can't walk for the rest of my life, and that's the worst thing that happened to me, we have to somewhat imagine that if the worst thing in someone's life was losing, a watch from their grandfather, if that's the worst thing that happened in their life, and the worst thing that happened in my life was the car crash, it's the worst thing that happened in each of our lives. Pain is, you can't equate it. It is what it is for everyone. So I did want to get that in here because it's don't be quick to judge other people's pain, what they say.
Yeah, because I think that's really important. Changing the camera, because like there's I always say, like, I'm glad that you hit that, because like you can't compare pain, you can't compare trauma, because it's different to the person experiencing it, and you can't put like a measurement on that. You really can't.
Absolutely.
And one of my things was like always when people were like, if I'm going through something and I'm telling someone that I'm going through it, and like the stereotypical response is like, well, just don't be sad type shit, or like it's going, or say it's like you're going through something and people are like, well, it gets better, this shall pass. Imagine it's like standing in the rain and then someone's like, don't worry, it's gonna stop raining eventually. It doesn't change the fact that you're still fucking wet.
Right. Yeah,
and it's it's so invalidating. And like I hear the optimism and I understand why people say it. They're trying to be positive, and like I get that. I understand that. But as someone who I believe in like feeling the things and going through the trauma and trying to address it while it's happening the best you obviously can with the experience that you have in life. But it just always boggled my mind because like so many people are always like, well, it gets better, don't worry. It's like, I'm still in pain. Like it doesn't matter what you say. And it's like, it's so weird the way that we process things. I just wanted to add that on to what you're saying, because it completely ties into the pain aspect. But obviously we're getting towards like the back end of the podcast, so I want to pass it back to you so you could go into more about about the album and the party and stuff like that.
Of course. So to end the pain discussion, the reason why I even bring it up is the album's made from pain. A lot of art is. I'm sure to some extent your podcast has been inspired, maybe created. My album is made from pain. It is like, to me, it sounds evil, but it's torturous. The pain that it took to make, to write, and people might be like, oh, it's not even that deep. But to me, it's everything. And that's something to keep in mind. That also is to say, and that, sometimes even me, I'll become very quick to judge other people's scenarios. Like we talked about how good other people's lives are. And that's a mistake I make sometimes, is I'll be like, oh, like we have electricity and we have this, so don't be sad, to someone that like has the same things. But even that contradicts now. So I'm very careful when I say things like that. I do want people to feel grateful, but also I have to realize, and I think everyone too, and this is a fault of mine, is that to some extent too, they're going through some pain. And like, who am I to say, like, to them, they don't care they have the electricity. They have the pain still. So I did kind of want to hit that and kind of hit that mark and kind of end there, to be like, I do contradict a little bit, but all for the goodness of both sides. And the biggest thing is pain is immeasurable. That's something I really want to nail home. And unfortunately, we don't live in a penny world always. Like I know that's a very, very silly analogy I give with the penny, but we don't live in a penny world. Like people have serious loss. It's just like we can't say that someone's loss of a parent and someone's loss of a house. Like we can't compare. Quit comparing. Mm-hmm. Start looking at people for who they are and what they're going through, and just attempt to understand. You will never understand, but attempt to. I'll nail that shut. I think that's a good point to end. So let's talk about this album release party, kind of a more brighter tone. I know we talked about a lot of serious topics, but I think it's good for the health, the mental health especially. But this is kind of a good turn. I booked it in Providence, and I decided all the profits are going to go to St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, which does great things for children, because I know people that have been personally affected. And I'm not going to say their name because I want to keep, like their private and personal life to them. But I know people that it has personally paid for chemotherapy, given toys, dinners, paid for their parking. Like, parking in Boston's tough. Like, it is, they have done so much for children with cancer that every time I try to stray away, and it's not that I'm trying to do something different, it's just that they're so good that I always end up going back to them. I know people that have been personally affected. Don't get me wrong. Like, if you're going to say, well, the owner might be rich, it's like, honestly, you're probably right. Sure, they might be rich, but what about all the kids they actually help? Like, that $1 I know makes a difference. Not just because I know someone, but I see it in everywhere else too. And that's some things that a lot of charities don't have. A lot of times you get it and they just disappear. Oh, I donated $1 to, some child in Africa. You never see that back. I'm not saying don't. Like, I'm definitely not saying don't, but you never see that come back. At least with St. Jude, they take the time to post and show how these people are benefiting and bettering their lives, their situations, because sometimes it's bleak, but they're making some light of a very tragic scenario. So that's why this release party, I'm making one. The tickets are $10. Don't tell me you can afford it. If you can afford it, I will pay for your ticket and donate myself, which I'm doing a big donation myself because the venue's not free. I paid for the venue, my own cash. I don't expect any of that money that I get back to pay for the venue. I want all the profits to go to St. Jude. 2, it's in Providence, kind of a nice, it's not the nicest area on earth. Like, I'll be absolutely realistic with you, but it's a nice music venue. Very nice. They have valet parking. There's security, so it's safe. There's a bar if you like to drink. There's, live music, which a lot of people like, featuring artists. Jay Brizo as the opener. Monty comes after, also another rapper. And then finally, me. I'll also be showcasing the album 10:30. You'll be able to hear it a week before it releases on 10:30. I had to take the opportunity while I could. And there will be merchandise there in which if you buy a shirt, all the profits also go to St. Jude. So I have made a scenario where you can go to an event and pretty much all the profit is going to charity. So you can come support me, support the charity, go for a drink. It's on a Sunday, and you'll say, I watch football. Well, the Patriots are on. So it's like, if you like the Patriots, I made sure to do it on a day that they play Monday. So it's like, there is no excuse to not come, have a good time. If you hate my guts, which absolutely possible, go for a drink. If you don't drink, go for the charity. There are other artists that are going to speak there, videographers. There's going to be many people of different types of media forms. I know that I have my videographer that made Skin, Damien DuPont. He's an awesome guy. I actually recommend him go to your podcast because he's awesome, and I know he'd love to do this. Makes comic books and everything like that. But like, made Skin, beautiful music video. He's going to speak. We have other people like Devin Slaughter, graphic designer. He's going to be there. He's going to do his own thing, and he's going to be able to talk. It's a spot where multiple artists can get together. And Mike Braga, I mean, he's been on the podcast a couple times. He's going to be hopefully doing the next music video. We're planning on getting together Sunday to start filming for one of the songs on the album. But like, the whole idea is this is an artist space. It's my show at the end of the day, but it's not. This is our show. So it's like, come support me, support the charity, support a drink, support whatever the hell you want, but just come and have a good time. It's 4 hours that you can get out the house on a Sunday when you're not doing anything and actually support something good. And even if we get $10, $50, or $100 to a kid in need, then we've done something. It's not the number or amount, it's the awareness we spread. And we've already sold approximately maybe like 40, 50 tickets. We're all going to have a blast. So I know it's a kind of a big ad, but it's like, no, it's like, come have a good time, swing by, like talk to people, have fun, listen to the album early. Like, I'm providing an opportunity to an experience. If you want to join, great. And if not, great. Just share it. That's all I ask. Take the time to share it. Come by, swing by. And then to end everything, basically on October 30th, bump the album. Like, all proceeds go to charity. I don't want any money. All the iTunes money, Apple Music money, Spotify money, Amazon money, whatever money. If you go on iHeartRadio, which no one does, and go on it, that money is going to watch my iHeartRadio feed, like the most streamed. No, it won't be. But I'm telling you, like, it's all going to charity. This is all because of my cousin Miranda. Very quickly, I talked about her last podcast, she had Ewing sarcoma, very rare form of cancer. Very quick and very deadly. My goal is just to give people a chance to get some opportunity. Miranda was fortunate to have a lot of care, a lot of opportunity, but unfortunately, she had cancer and it took her life. If I can help someone else not go through that, then I am going to do everything in my power. And that's my stance. I am not making any money from my music. Zero. So that is a big point I want to make. People can think whatever they want about me. They might say, oh, he's trying to get people here. He's doing, he's so cash grabby. Sure, but not for me. For the charity. Remember that.
I think it's a perfect way to wrap up this podcast. There's been super information. We got deep and stuff. It was great to catch up as well.
Absolutely. Love
and
coming on.
To give you a platform to promote your music, and as well as the funds going to a great cause, which I always will support. Like I mentioned to the title of this episode is probably going to be called Wake Up.
Yeah.
So I want to give you kind of like your last thoughts related to waking up, quote unquote, and I'll kind of let you kind of tie it however you want to tie it, and then I'll send us off on our way.
Absolutely. I think in life, we get caught up sometimes, but as Lou told me, and as I will tell you, wake up, everyone. It's 10:30. Get out there, pull up your pants, and do something.
Oh, I love that. Zane, it's been a pleasure to get back on this podcast and talk and be able to hear about everything that you have coming up in your life, and you've kind of manifested it too, which I love. Love seeing people say they're going to do something on the podcast and do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how long it takes you to do it, but you're doing it, and like that's the most important part. So again, thank you for coming on the podcast. I appreciate you.
Anytime.
Always want to do this again. So appreciate people that want to come back.
Yes.
For you guys like the podcast, please rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends, share with your family, share with your grandma. You can check it out at carrollconnection.simplecast.com. Also, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the major listening platforms. If you'd like to watch your podcast, search Carroll Connection on YouTube or Jared Carroll. It should pop right up. If anyone wants to be a guest in future episodes, please reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram. You could text me, just shoot me a message. Just keep it in mind, I try to book multiple weeks in advance, so if I don't get you in right away, there's usually something that's happening or I have prior guests. So keep that in mind. I'll be going to Ireland at the end of this month, so when I'm not making content, that is why, just to keep that in mind for people that are consistent listeners. But again, thank you guys. Until next time, peace.